Hello and welcome back to the Toffee YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. Today we're back with another match preview for our third game of the season against Aston Villa away. It's a Friday night game this time, so the first televised game of the season for us. We'll start by briefly touching on last week's game against Watford at home. Obviously won't go into too much detail. You can watch James's match reaction if you want to see more detail about that. Started the game brightly, much better going forwards, obviously with Bernard scoring around the 10th minute, but then obviously faded as the game went on. We allowed Watford to grow into the game. They began to create more chances, but the defence obviously holding out solid again. A lot of clean sheets recently, so yet to concede a goal this season, but also going into last season the clean sheet record is looking very good. Obviously Watford did grow into the game. They ended up with a lot of attackers on the pitch at the end of the game, so we did well to defend, but obviously it would have been a more convincing result if we could have scored more. Obviously, Bernard getting the goal is good. Obviously, for his confidence, he didn't score too many last season, so maybe this might be the start of something for him. Now looking towards Villa, they've had a tricky start to the season. They've played 2 games so far, and they've lost both of them. Lost 3-1 to Spurs at Tottenham Stadium, and then they were at home to Bournemouth, and they lost that game 2-1 as well. Slightly contrasting games. Obviously in Spurs they started quite well. John McGinn scored quite early in that game, so they started that game brightly and then kind of faded away as Spurs grew into the game, and then eventually got the 3 goals to make it a comfortable win for them. But in comparison, Bournemouth started much brighter than Villa, and then Villa gradually grew into the game, so their goal came later on. It was a great goal by Douglas Luiz from outside the box, but then they couldn't find that final goal to rescue a point or even 3. So in terms of what to expect from them, we're not too sure so far. They had 2 quite contrasting performances. Obviously, they were more likely to defend deeper against Spurs, obviously a better side than Bournemouth. So we're not really too sure at the moment. Are they going to concede too many? They're going to start brightly. So from their opening games, we can't tell too much. We know that they haven't scored easily so far. They made the signing of Wesley, a striker who scored 17 goals last year. He's yet to score yet. Signed him from the Belgian league, I think. And obviously their goal came from John McGinn and Douglas Luiz, so 2 midfielders who their goals came from. So their forwards are yet to start scoring. A lot of the main headlines surrounding Villa when they came up were they spent more than Fulham did last year. I think it was somewhere in the region of 120, 130 million. Obviously maybe the main difference being Dean Smith has signed a lot of players that he already knows, such as the loan sign of El Ghazi last year. So in comparison to Fulham spent a lot of money on new players that didn't really have time to gel. But Villa have come up with a lot of loan signs and made them permanent. Also Tyrone Mings. So the main core of that team has played together for a few years now. It's not like they all of a sudden got a lot of new players and they're going to take time to gel. They are a more complete side than Fulham were last year. Obviously, if we're looking at danger men, it's always got to be Jack Grealish, really. He's been probably their best player for quite a few years now. He stuck with them when they went down. I think he had the opportunity to move to Spurs, but he didn't. He's probably the most dangerous player. He hasn't had the brightest start so far, but interestingly, his record came up on Twitter this week that he'd lost 20 consecutive Premier League games, which is an interesting record to have. If he was going to end it at any time, I'm sure plenty of cynics would say that's going to be against Everton, but we're more hopeful that's not going to happen. In terms of looking at the Everton squad, obviously we thought Gomez might not feature last week, but he did, so he's presumably fine. The only potential injury is Lucas Digne. He went off injured and then got replaced by Mason Holgate later on in the game against Watford. It didn't seem too serious. There's been pictures of him in training this week, so I'd imagine he's probably going to come straight back into the starting 11. I don't think his injury's too serious. There was an interview with Leighton Baines saying that he's ready to start. Obviously, he's missed the past few games and he missed pre-season with an injury. He's fit now if he needs to step in, but I'd imagine Lucas Digne will be fine. Fabian Delph, he hasn't featured at all for Everton so far. He did pick up an injury against Werder Bremen, I think it was. So, will we see him? I think he's going to come into the squad. I think he's been in training a few times, and obviously I don't think he's going to come in straight away. I think Marcus Silva was more than happy with the midfield that played against Watford. Obviously Andre Gomez is one of the first names on the team sheet, and then Jean-Philippe Gbamin. He was a bit shaky against Palace, but he definitely improved in the second game against Watford. He's much better at tackling. He's playing forward balls. He really impressed me when I wrote the player ratings for last week. I thought he was excellent. And so I'd imagine the team will stay quite similar with Pickford in goal. Obviously, Coleman, Mina and Keane, obviously they're not really going anywhere at the moment. Sidibe's only recently started training, I think. So Coleman's not going to go out the squad yet. Mina and Keane looked solid so far. Mina probably our standout performer for the past 2 games. 2 man of the match performances potentially. And I think Lucas Digne will play. And then in terms of, there's been a lot of discussion recently about Gylfi Sigurdsson. Will he continue? I'd imagine Marco Silva's not going to take him out yet. Obviously, he has been quite poor from while he's been in play. Obviously, his set pieces were quite dangerous. Richarlison just couldn't finish them off against Watford. But I believe he'll stay in the team. I think he'll stay with Gbamin and Gomez. And obviously, Richarlison went off on the hour mark against Watford. He also had a poor game against Crystal Palace. Obviously, Walcott came on for him, but I can't see him being dropped. I think he'll stay in the team for now. I reckon Iwobi might take a bit longer to break into the starting 11, but I'd imagine we might see Iwobi as a substitute maybe this weekend. So I think he'll obviously stay with Bernard, obviously scoring last week. I think he'll stay with Sigurdsson in number 10 and Richarlison on the right. Obviously, Richarlison's favourite position is probably not the right. He obviously prefers to be out on the left. And then who's in contention for striker? Obviously, Moise Keane, Marco Silva spoke out about him saying he doesn't want to rush him into it. He doesn't want to push him into the team too early. But he showed a lot of promise when he came on. He had good skills. He obviously he broke forward at one point in the shot, kind of went flying at the Gladys, which was unfortunate. It would have been a good start for him at Goodison to get a goal. Obviously, it wasn't meant to be. But Calvert-Lewin's looked quite poor in the past 2 games. I think he'll probably start again, Calvert-Lewin. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Moise Keane earlier. And then, obviously, Moise Keane, I'd imagine, will be starting in the next few weeks. Just a couple of stats, really. The referee's Michael Oliver, probably one of the better referees. He's regarded as the best in the Premier League. So not too many worries there. In the past 6 games, Everton have won 5 and lost 1 against Villa. So quite a good record if that means anything to you. And just looking at Villa as a whole, they look like a team that are happy to play football. You know, they're not just going to sit and park the bus like a lot of teams in the league do at the moment. They look like they're happy to come and play. Obviously, they'll be in front of their home fans as well. So will that have an influence? I'd imagine. Obviously, they're still waiting for their first game of the season, so the fans will be more desperate for a result from this game. For a prediction, I'm going to continue with us winning. I think I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet here. I'd imagine they're going to score. I'm going to be hopeful. I think Moise Keane might score coming off the bench. Let us know your predictions down below. Make sure to follow all of our social media. Thank you for all your support. And let's hope for a win on Friday.